What is up, everybody? Jim to my right, Mr. Scott Parks across from us. You know, Scott, Jim and I, we're wildcatters. You're in the presence of wildcatters.
Nice.
We did that thing called the 6.5 BC that we're still working on. And but it sounds like in talking to you, you're a bit of a wildcatter yourself. You're working on a wildcat before the BC. What would that be, Jim? I don't know. Anyway, Scott, what's going on? This wildcat called the...
Well, some people call it the 6 Vortex. The
Okay.
reamer print, just because I did the specs on it, is called the 6 Parks.
Oh, really? Get into the fine print.
Or maybe it's vice versa. Maybe the print says 6 Vortex. I think that's what it is. The print says 6 Vortex, but everybody I shot with just called it the 6 Parks.
Yo, Parksy.
Okay, gotcha.
I didn't tell to call it anything.
So
This is a long time ago. This isn't new, though.
This is 2012-ish,
yeah.
Back,
I think.
kind of the height of your shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Scott, we brought you on today. Now, normally, we'll talk with
Because we
Brian
thought we
Muckenhirn.
could give you some advice.
Well, we thought but we normally talk with Ryan Muckenhirn about cartridges on here. However, the 6 Vortex, it's called the 6 Vortex or maybe the 6 Parks, depending on who you are.
I like 6 Vortex. personally.
It works. It rolls off the tongue well. But what's the deal with this cartridge? We'd love to know, kind of, to give people an idea of like how this whole wildcatting process, like when we're not doing it just for fun, like Mark Ryan and I did with the 6.5 BC, you were doing it actually for a reason, for a competitive advantage. So describe that whole process of how it came about, and then we can get into a little bit of like why it never really like caught on like wildfire necessarily.
Right. It kind of started to at first,
Yeah.
and then some things happened that it really wasn't needed anymore, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So
What is the why behind it? What
was the problem?
What problem were you trying to solve?
So the problem and there'll be some 647 Lapua lovers that are going to bash on me for this, but I just could never get a 647 to shoot, and I know a lot of people that couldn't. I know a select few that love them, but a lot of people that don't care for them because they're just a little more finicky than some people like, including myself. Like I don't want finicky at all when it comes to a cartridge. I want to be able to know that I can just load the load that I did last week and it still shoots this week,
I mean, so you were seeing some stuff where like you would like get it to shoot and then it kind of like wouldn't with the same recipe?
I had an instance where I went to Winnequa, literally shot multiple legitimate sub 1 inch groups at 500 yards, 3 round groups, not 5, and thought I finally got it cracked. Like this barrel combination, this reamer. I mean, I literally had 3 different reamers made. Went through 5 different barrels, 6,000 6mm burger hybrids, and just never got happy with it. So I was at Winnequa shooting on the silhouette range, and literally was just stacking them. I'm like, finally, Same day, go home, the same ammo, and can't shoot under an inch at 100 yards at my house. I'm like, that's it. I give up.
Doesn't really make sense.
No.
I mean, that was like the most extreme example.
Mm-hmm.
But generally it was just like there was always a flyer or, double groupings. I just couldn't, like I'm kind of anal retentive about how a gun shoots because I want to make up for all of my misgivings when it comes to shooting. So I want the gun to be as perfect as it possibly can. And I like the gun to be able to shoot in the zeros on a pretty regular basis, right? Like legitimate one hole.
Yeah.
And, if I can't do that, I start tweaking. So that happened at Winnequa. And I just got to thinking, how can I solve this problem? Like there's got to be something why this cartridge doesn't work. Now, let me preface this with everything I'm about to say is all hypothetical. I have no scientific background besides my own case use. Pardon the pun.
I like that.
It worked.
I'm glad you caught that. I didn't. I like it.
So I'm making a lot of hypothetical assumptions here. In my mind, it works. Maybe somebody that's smarter than me can tell me why it doesn't work and why it actually works. I don't know. But the case capacity of the 6 Vortex, the H2O case capacity, is about 45 grains. So I started looking at other similar cartridges that most people have really good luck with.
Was that the
Wait, the
6
6 Vortex or the 6x47?
Oh, sorry, the 647. Sorry.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
the 647, which the 6547 is the parent case of the 647. Therefore, the parent case of the 6 Vortex is the 6547.
Roger.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing that out. And then I started measuring other 6mm case capacities, and there's the 6XC at the time. There was 6XC. The 6 Creedmoor was just kind of coming on strong, and most people were happy. It was kind of total flipped upside down compared to what I was seeing with the 647, whereas the majority of people loved the XC, loved the Creedmoor.
Okay, yeah.
And you had very few that didn't have luck with them, you know. And a lot of things can play into that, you know, I mean, barrel, chamber dimensions, loading techniques, whatever, right? I took the 6XC, measured it came out to about 47 grains of capacity. That's just filling it up to the neck or to the top. And then I took the 6 Creedmoor, and it was with the Hornady brass, and it was 51 grains. And so what I got to thinking was, I wonder if with the specific powder I'm using, which is H4350, if for some reason the case capacity on the 647 just doesn't agree with that powder, and like almost like a node for case capacity.
Okay, yeah.
Right? And so I thought, well, if I go up 2 grains to the 6XC, people are pretty happy with it. Then if you go up to Creedmoor, most people are pretty happy with it. I wonder what happens if I create a case that's right in the middle of those two.
Naturally.
Right? And I did that, and by literally just blowing the shoulder forward, basically doing the same thing you do to make 6 Dasher from 6BR, or to make 243 Ackley from 243 is a little different because you don't have to create a false shoulder, but that's another story. It's the same top end though. And honestly, it was like magic. Like anything I tried shot fantastic.
Like as far as just how much powder or
Yeah.
different powders or
Yeah, the powder charge.
the powder charge. Okay.
Yeah.
Of that specific powder that you were talking about before.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I could literally, typically once I find a load for my rifle that I'm happy with, I always run a test that runs up to 2 grains heavier than what I'm shooting, so that I know I'm not over pressure, that I'm safe in all conditions.
Okay.
You know, super high heat, rain, whatever.
Okay, sure, yeah.
And my load ended up being 41 grains. And so at my house at the time, I had a 470-yard range. So I loaded up 41. I loaded up 3 rounds of 41, and then in 0.3 increments, loaded up 3 rounds apiece all the way up to, I think, 43-1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And laid down and shot all those rounds at the 470-yard target. And they were, honest to goodness, all 18 rounds were under 3 inches.
That's
at
impressive.
470.
Okay.
I'm like, that works, you know? And then I didn't keep track of each round, but I swear when I walked up to the target, you could see like individual 3-round groups.
Yeah, little
within.
3.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not claiming that by any means, but it looked that way.
It appeared that way.
Yeah. So I was like stoked. That being said, it's a good bit of work. You know, you got to start with a 6.547 case. You've got to partially neck it down to 6mm to create a false shoulder in the neck, and then you have to fire form it.
Oh, yeah. I remember who was just talking. We were talking about a false shoulder on one of the other podcasts.
We were.
Was that us?
Yeah, we talked about.
Yeah, that was
briefly.
I always wondered how they did that. The false shoulder thing is an interesting concept, but then you just blow it out, basically.
Yeah, then you just shoot it. They shoot fantastic. I mean, if it's a good you can find. Yeah. I mean, I've shot Fireform loads in local matches.
Yeah. So obviously, much like we did with the 6.5 BC, you had to go through the whole process, though, of getting a reamer made and getting dies made and all that stuff.
Yeah, but I do that with every cartridge anyways, because I want my own reamer, because I want the same reamer to be used. And so generally I'll buy 5 or 6 barrels from the same lot of steel, and then the same reamer. Then I buy enough bullets for those barrels. That way nothing changes over the years. So
is that kind of why, like, it almost seems like when you're somebody like yourself where you have all this equipment and you're already buying reamers for stuff, like wildcatting almost is kind of, there's a little bit more that goes into it, like more thought process. You can't just go willy-nilly, but you're sort of already, you got all this crap anyway.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you're going to try something new, okay, whatever, I was going to buy a reamer anyway. Yeah. What does it matter if it's for the 6 Vortex that I just made up or a 6.5 Creedmoor that, you know, everybody has?
Yeah, it's like already part of your process.
Yeah.
It's a fun thing to do if that's your thing, you know? Like, granted, it's kind of a downfall if you're also a competition shooter, because you tend to spend more time messing with loads than actually practicing. But to be quite honest, like, messing around with cartridges by myself is much more fun than practicing by myself. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm doing something. Like, if I'm messing around with loads, like, I don't need to have competition. If I'm practicing, I like having somebody else there so we can push each other.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like the competition is how good you can make that thing.
Yeah, it's with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's like accomplishing that goal.
Mm-hmm. So, Scott, right before we were talking here, and it was at the point where you're like, stop, we got to do this on the podcast. You kind of got into explaining how you solved a problem that once existed, that now
existed for me, and maybe
at least
some
for
other
you,
people.
sure.
Yeah.
But kind of now no longer exists. It's kind of just one of many other things that now seem to be easier to do. And
well, there's more cases out there. Like, for instance, there's factory 6-dasher brass now. You've got the 6GT.
Yeah.
You know, and George and I talked about that case before he worked on that. You know, and I was excited that he was doing it. And it seems to turn out fantastic. It's a fantastic little cartridge. And then in the meantime, you know, so back then, like, I prefer running a small primer case. And at the time, the only 6 Creedmoor brass was large primer. And so, and it's just because it's more like a psychological thing with me. I just feel like I do better with small rifle primers. And I'm not the only one that says that, but you can also find arguments against it. But so then, literally, like, gosh, probably wasn't a year or two after, you know, I got the 6 Vortex shooting really good, Lapua comes out with small primer Creedmoor brass that has the exact same case capacity as the 6 Vortex.
Oh. Right. And when
very curious.
Hey, Scott,
very curious.
Scott, we all love you, Scott. But when a guy who looks like Mr. Clean named Scott Parks comes out and says, I made it in my backyard, and then when Lapua, whatever, comes out with it.
Well, they didn't come out. I mean, they just made a Creedmoor.
Yeah,
their brass is typically smaller case volume than Hornady or Winchester.
Okay.
You know, so it's purely by chance.
Just kind of worked out that way.
Yeah. I mean, I assume so. I mean, maybe. That being said, I mean, they are a pretty smart company. I mean, maybe they were doing, like, powder capacity tests and stuff. I don't know.
You guys are doing kind of the same thing simultaneously, perhaps?
It's quite possible. I don't know, though. I'm not going to claim that.
And what's and just so for those watching on YouTube, we do have some cartridges on the table. We have one case on the table. Can you just go through, and this is a good visual aid for what you were talking a little bit about with what you did.
Yeah, so we've got a 6BR here is the first cartridge. And then next to it is a 6-dasher. So to make this out of this,
a 6-dasher from a 6BR.
Yep. The way I do it, there's 2 different ways. Well, there's a number of ways you can do it. But I'll go into the way the ways you can do it would be a whole other podcast. Honestly,
Okay.
The whole cream of wheat thing.
Oh yeah,
that's where the false shoulder got brought.
That's
up.
right.
Yeah. I don't recommend the cremate method because, like, fireform loads shoot fantastic. Like, my experience with fireform loads with the 6BR forming dasher and Ford, like, they shoot fantastic.
I mean, let's admit it. Cremate wheat's not that great.
I don't like it.
Covered some really important ground here.
And honestly, it takes a freaking long time.
Yeah.
To fill those cases up, and then you have to, like, stuff wadding down in them to create pressure. Like,
Not interested.
It's not fun at all.
So the way you make.
Yeah. So the way you make both of these, it's the same method. The only difference is you get to skip a step with the 6 Vortex because you're starting with a 6.5 47.
Oh.
So now that's back to the false shoulder thing, right?
Yeah.
So with 6 dasher, you're starting with a 6BR. So the way I prefer to do it, and I think it's the safest way to do it, and you're going to get the longest brass life, is you make a false shoulder. So you essentially have to run a mandrel, either a 257 or a 264 mandrel. Most people have a 6.5 mandrel. A lot of people don't have 257 mandrels. More do now than did back then, and you got to neck it up so you can then partially neck it back down to 6mm. So that false shoulder can butt up against the beginning of the neck shoulder junction in your chamber.
Okay.
And that holds the case tight so you can fire it without the case going forward.
Right.
Gotcha.
Okay. So then you said, so you're talking about, which one was it? 6BR and which one?
6 dasher.
6 dasher. Okay.
Yep.
So the 6 dasher comes from the 6BR.
Yep.
Can I ask real quick? I know we're going to go long here, but performance-wise, between the 6BR and the 6 dasher,
they look so similar, and only cases like these can make a 6mm bullet look gigantic.
You can typically get a good, depending on who you are and what you're comfortable with. Most people run a 105, 107 class bullet in the 6BR at anywhere between 28 and 2850.
Okay.
Unless they're running, like, some hot rod powder that's super temp sensitive or something. But running a good stable powder.
Okay.
And most people run 6 dashers closer to 3,000 feet per second.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Right on. So you kind of used a similar process there then to do what you did with the 6 Vortex.
Yep. Just create a false shoulder, loaded the brown with, whatever the load that I was going to be shooting at it anyways.
Yeah.
And shoot them.
What kind of velocities were you getting out of the 6 Vortex?
And the 6 Vortex there is represented by the empty case, correct?
No, that's the 647.
Oh, okay.
And this is the 6 Vortex.
Oh, so, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So more case capacity.
Copy that.
Because the shoulder's bumped up a little bit. It's almost like you ackleyed it a little bit. Like it's not.
It is a 40-degree shoulder.
Okay.
The only reason it's not an ackley is because you're blowing the whole shoulder forward. An ackley, you don't have
just out.
Yes. Yeah. The neck is the same length with an ackley, theoretically. So I personally run 115s, 115 DTACs with the 6 Vortex. And I run them at right around 30, 20.
Oh, wow.
You could easily push it much harder. I mean, like I said, I ran up to 43.1 grains.
Okay.
To make sure I was safe, and it was. I didn't chrono it when I was doing that, but that being said, most people do that same velocity with the people that do have good luck with the 647. Run similar velocities.
Okay.
For me, it was more of a consistency thing.
Gotcha.
It wasn't like to get more velocity.
Yeah, that's fair. And then for everyone's reference, those of you who are on the YouTube, because we all know what this one looks like. This is a 6.5 Creedmoor sitting next to the old 6 Vortex. Very close. Yep. In overall length, and even like the shoulders seem to start at about the same point and all that. It's just
Creedmoor's a little bit longer.
Yeah. Which one was this one again, Scott?
That's
this last one?
6.5 47.
So this is the 6.5 47. Okay, got it.
Yeah, so This case, and this case all started as 6.547, and this one still is a 6.547.
Gotcha.
Sure enough.
Gotcha.
Very interesting. A tale of at least one man's Wildcat journey. Scott, we have gone way over, but I'm just curious, just like right off the top, have you wildcatted anything else?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I did. Actually, I should have brought the case up here. I have it. It's the one time that I almost had a catastrophic mistake. No, it was a mistake. It just
we
didn't
podcasted about the wrong one, Jim.
Next time.
So
Leave us with a little cliffhanger.
So before I decided to do this, I was messing with an existing Wildcat called the 6BRK.
Ooh, the bark.
Which was essentially taking a 243 and making the top, giving it a 35 degree, basically, 30 degree shoulder. Basically, the top was the same as BR, except it had the length of a 243. And then it didn't have, it had less case taper.
Okay.
So you.
And that was the first time you almost had a catastrophic mistake.
Yeah. So I was messing with that cartridge. I was messing around with 4350 and H1000, and the 4350 load was like, say 43 grains, and the H1000 load was like 49 grains.
Significant difference.
I put 49 grains of 4350 in one. Luckily, nothing really happened besides piercing the primer. It didn't even blow the primer. I was shocked. The primer, I saw the case on my desk. The primer's in the case still. However, it did add about 300 feet per second to the cartridge.
By golly.
So it worked.
It worked. Very interesting.
Sarcasm.
Yeah, I wouldn't try it.
Well, hey.
Don't recommend it.
Also goes to show you why all this messing around and wildcatting and, doing all these wild things, you should be very careful. Even Scott here can occasionally make a mistake, and he's always messing around with this stuff. So, very interesting.
Yeah. I did a 6.284, so like the 6.5 284 is a real popular, pretty popular cartridge. So I mean, it's basically the 6.284 would easily do the velocities that I accidentally got with that 6BRK.
Interesting.
So it was a 107 Match King at essentially 3,400 feet per second.
Oh, wow.
Out of that BRK on accident, whereas the 6.5 284 would do it no problem.
That was normal.
Gotcha.
Very neat.
Well, Scott, thank you for sharing your tale of the 6 Vortex, one of your personal Wildcats. It really is interesting hearing you talk about that. I'm glad you didn't blow yourself up with the other one.
Yes.
And, thanks everybody for listening.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to know anything else or hear anything else about wildcatting and messing around with cartridges and stuff, you know where to find us, and you know where the comment section is. So make yourself heard, because we are reading.
We are.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
I even go in there and check every once in a while.
Oh,
even
thanks,
Scott's
Scott.
in there.
Yeah.
Say hey.
On
to
YouTube,
Scott.
anyway.
Say hey to Scott on YouTube.
Yeah, say hey to Scott. Scott, maybe we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
guys.
Bye.